NASCAR is heading to the streets of Chicago for what is potentially one of the category's most anticipated races in decades. Not even the Roval or the Bristol Dirt Circuit has gotten this much attention in their build-up to the event. I mean, it's easy to see why. The prospect of seeing nearly 40 stock cars on the tight and narrow confines of a major city's public roads leaves many curious of what might happen. Although it seems as though everyone is anticipating that it will end up being just constant crashes and pileups. Personally, I'm willing to give this event a chance. Is it in principle a bonkers idea? Of course, but I think that's quite a good thing. It's always interesting to see racing categories experiment somewhat. Although, it's not as if NASCAR hasn't raced on street circuits in the past. One of NASCAR's lower level series in the Southwest Tour would be racing around the streets of Los Angeles near Exposition Park. In a race called the Ford Los Angeles Street Race 200, the event would take place over 3 years from 1998 to 2000. The course would feature just 9 turns, with 6 to the left and 3 to the right. An intriguing track to say the least, even if sports cars or single-seaters were headlining the event. These things very much weren't. Turn 1 is a small left-handed kink, which in theory could be taken flat out, if it wasn't for the fact that you'd never get stopped with a much tighter left-hander afterwards. Also, be aware of the pit exit wall, which comes out at a bit of an angle. Sure, that does make the entry back onto the track a bit smoother, but maybe they could have made it a bit narrower as to allow for more on-track space for cars to attempt an overtaking manoeuvre. However, when you exit out of Turn 2, bask in the glorious space that greets you. So much width for you to use, within reason of course. Although if you want a vaguely competent Turn 3, then as far as you can to the right hand side will make the corner a bit easier for you. The width does make this one of the better overtaking places on the track, along with the heavy braking zone for the hairpin. Said hairpin also comes with a very temporary chicane in the form of a Chevrolet. It did though give some drivers more of an advantage than others. The first right-hander comes up immediately afterwards before you get into a much tighter forest section of the circuit. I mean, maybe the term forest is perhaps a bit inaccurate. Maybe just an area with bits of shrubbery lining both sides of the track is a better description. This area is surprisingly quick in these cars. Just one downshift and a flick to the left where you desperately hope the car's being set up to cope with the fast change in direction. And then a long, almost never-ending right turn, where the camera angle is at such a low vantage point, it would be very possible for it to be squished by a rather hefty stock car. Turn 7 meanwhile is possibly the best corner on the track from a technical standpoint. Whilst the shape of the circuit indicates that it's 2 separate corners, it's taken like a double apex left-hander. Oh, I do like a good double apex corner. As you come out of Turn 7, you'll see on your right the entrance to the pit lane. Usually that means you're not too far away from the start-finish line. And in reality, you aren't. It's just that to get there, you have to negotiate 2 turns. 2 turns that look about as far as possible out of the NASCAR's comfort zone. An absurdly tight right-hand hairpin before a quick burst of acceleration towards a hairpin of basically identical proportions, just going the other way this time, follows. Once you've done this turn, then you'll be glad to know that you've reached the end of the lap, until you realise that you have to do this for 124 more times. Although getting out of the hairpin is easier said than done, especially if you clip the inside and block the entire apex of the corner. Now this circuit wouldn't go beyond the year 2000 because the main sponsor of the race in Ford decided that it no longer wanted to be part of the race. And also, perhaps confusingly, the interest in the event from the public was waning somewhat. It's not as though strange and bemusing occurrences didn't happen during the race. The track caught fire due to a fuel leak occurring for one of the cars, with the following car's raging hot exhaust giving the gasoline something hot enough to produce the flames that mark the ideal racing line for the corner. Not sure that should be an option for racing games to use when learning tracks. And a dog wandered onto the circuit and in the process got a bit lost. I do think one of the issues with the track though was spectator viewing points, which looked few and far between on the TV images. I'm not saying the fans who were there didn't enjoy themselves, but if you don't have good viewing points for the race, then it's difficult for people to enjoy the action on track, which I would say is the primary reason you would visit a race event. Perhaps that was the contributing factor in the event's diminishing interest. Chicago is a huge event for NASCAR. It could feasibly be a new marquee event for the series, but if it lasts just a couple of years, then people would look back on it and say that it didn't work. However, even if it doesn't work, personally, I don't really mind. Harebrained ideas like this are cool to see, and if it did fail, I don't want that to be a catalyst for NASCAR, or indeed any other series for that matter, to not take gambles on trying new ideas. I mean, I guess I'd have a new episode to do if it didn't work, but I'm very much hoping that I don't have to do a video on that. With that being said though, thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any more street circuits that you'd like to see featured in this series, then say in the comment section down below. In the meantime, however, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.